All right, but everybody, the question that comes to me a lot is when should I start rolling and who should I start rolling with? It's a great question because there is no doubt that rolling is what makes you better in jiu-jitsu. So, my name is Bill Jones. I'm the head instructor of top level martial arts in beautiful downtown Cuyahoga Falls. You're watching Professor's Corner. Um, yeah, who should you roll with and when should you start rolling? And these are great questions. It's confusing. I know that look, if you're a wrestler, you've wrestled for 15 years and then you get out of college and you want to get back into something physical and it makes sense to you to start just rolling with people as early as possible. And same thing if you've done martial arts all your life, you're used to sparring, you're used to doing this. That's kind of what I came in. So like day one of jiu-jitsu training, I was rolling. Like it just made sense because I was already someone who sparred a lot. I was already, it made sense to me. But most people who start jiu-jitsu have never done any martial art whatsoever. They're probably listening to Joe Rogan podcast, Jocko Willink, any number of great people. Maybe they follow Keanu Reeves and like his vibe, and they're like, man, he does that jiu-jitsu stuff. I should try that. So it's real easy for people to not know what to do and not understand that rolling is without a doubt required to get better at jiu-jitsu. And not only get better at jiu-jitsu, but to be able to make the moves fundamentally work against a resisting person. And that's important because most people join either for a good workout or for self-defense. Self-defense being one of the number one reasons that people do it. And if you can't make it work against a resisting person, that is not going to work for you in self-defense. And it's that simple. So the question becomes like, who should I roll with? When should I roll? And the answer is start rolling as early as you can. As early as you can. As early as you know a few moves is maybe the better way to say it. Like, I think day one rolling is sometimes kind of a waste because especially if you've never trained any martial art. Now, if you're a wrestler, you at least know wrestling. You know how to pin someone down. You can do some basic stuff. But like, if you don't know any techniques, you're gonna waste a lot of time of your time, not just other people's time, but your time doing things wrong and building poor habits. So you should probably wait until you know at least 1 to 2 moves from each position. So that's like 10 moves. You're talking about 2 weeks of training, maybe. Just know 2 things to do from the guard. I know a way to pass the guard. I know a submission or a sweep to try from the guard. I know a way to escape side control. I know a way to go from side control to the mount. I know a way to submit from the mount. I know a way to escape from the mount. Like once you know that, you should start training. You should start rolling. Now, who should roll with who? Now, this is a question where I think a lot of people get it wrong. As a beginner, so I'm going to use the basic belt systems, but if you're in a no-gi training and you don't use belt systems, that's fine too. But as a beginner, a white belt, you should be rolling mainly with people who are not white belts, blue and above. And yes, they're going to beat you a lot, but it's important because they're not going to build bad habits in you. They're going to give you good habits to have. They're going to teach you, hey, don't push up from the bottom. Hey, you keep the elbows tight. When you're passing the guard, make sure you move your elbow and knee at the same time. They're going to teach you how to keep everything together, build frames. And that is going to be very valuable, at least until you get rid of those bad habits. Then you can start rolling other white belts, I would say. But at first, I don't think it does you really a whole lot of good for 2 people who don't know really what they're doing to just go head to head and start slamming heads together because you're both doing things wrong. Even if you build a new habit based on what you experience there, it's probably going to be a bad habit because what they were doing was a bad habit. So you're like, oh yeah, they push up for the mount and it got me off of them, so I'm going to start pushing off of the mount. Like that's a terrible habit to have, right? So you need to train with experienced people at first, at least for your first few weeks of rolling. Once you start getting into the better habits, you can start going with other white belts. Now, with that said, most people do jiu-jitsu for a self-defense idea, or at least that's where they start, and then they fall in love with it. They start wanting to do the sport and all of that, and that's great. But with that said, there is no one who's going to react and give you the look of someone who is untrained, someone in just a fight situation, and we're talking more mutual combat self-defense here, as opposed to like an ambush where someone like jumps up on your back and is trying to choke you, or sexual assault type thing at this point. But no one's going to give you that kind of resistance except for a brand new person who doesn't know what they're doing. And for that reason, once you do know what you're doing, the best people to start rolling with are the brand new people. And good news, it works out, because I think those brand new people should be working with people who do know what they're doing. And it works out good. And the reason for that is now you're going to get used to training and understanding what an untrained person will do. If you roll with a black belt, they're going to move extremely efficiently and in a very different way than any person you're going to experience in 90% of your fights. You know, the average person doesn't get attacked much in their life, if ever. But if you do, it's probably not going to be by a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt or like a world-class kickboxer or something like that. It's probably going to be some dude who's drunk, and you know, you're going to have to defend yourself, and they're going to do something wild and crazy and weird. And you need to be ready for wild, crazy, and weird. That's when you should start rolling with the brand new people, though, is once you are, I'm going to say like high white belt, low blue belt. I think that's when it behooves you to roll with those people more often. Now, with that said, what about, you know, ambush attacks and all that kind of stuff? Well, you can only do so much for that kind of thing, right? Like, you can only simulate an ambush so often. So rolling a lot is going to be helpful, but at the same time, there's no way to simulate, you know, you're walking down the street and you're tired and it's the end of the day, and you know, I don't know, maybe you had a long shift at work, you know, you're unfocused, your husband is writing you, you know, because I don't know, he had a bad day at work, and maybe you have some texts that are on your mind that you didn't like to see, you know, and you're upset, and the kids are being a pain, and boom, someone decides to punch you in the face and try to steal your purse. There's nothing that's going to prep you for that. Nothing. Can you survive that? Can you move forward from that? Absolutely. And jiu-jitsu will definitely help you. But there is nothing I can do in the academy that's going to prep you for that. You know, as much as you try. Now, you can do simulation drills, you can do all kinds of things, but no matter what, it's simulation. And that's why I feel like eventually during tournaments is a good idea, because it's going to get your kind of like that fight or flight mechanic working a little bit. But, you know, there's no way to truly simulate an ambush attack. That's what I want to impress upon you, because the only way to defend against that is to attack back into it. Or, you know, if they're just taking your wallet per se, then let them take your wallet and move on, right? You don't need to chase this person down and potentially get shot. I'm talking about someone who, you know, bam, you get hit, they're ripping shit off of you, they're fighting you, you know, and it's life and death type thing. You know, that's a terrible thing. Good news is it's not going to happen to 99% of you, but you know, for the few it does, it's the most traumatic event of your life. And how do you survive that? And the answer is you train, and you're ready for it, because you train with people who do go a little bit wild. So then that brings up the next question that I always hear, which is, well, I've got a bad neck, I've got a bad back, I've got this, I've got that, you know, and I'm afraid to train with people who don't know what they're doing, you know. This is a valid thing, right? Like, especially if you join jiu-jitsu to get in decent shape, and you're afraid to train with people who don't know what they're doing, because like you keep hurting your back, or you keep, you know, hurting your arm or your leg or your neck or whatever. Like, how do you compensate for that? How do you make sure, or maybe you're a 60-year-old woman, what are you supposed to do? Train with 20-year-old men who are trying to murder you the whole time? You know, like, how do you do that? And the answer is positional training. You've got to do positional training. And that I think there's too much just bump, slap, and go in academies. I think that they need to do a lot more of, okay, guys, one of you is in the top of side control, the other one is in the bottom of side control. If you're on top, your job is to get to mount or submit or take the back. If you're on the bottom, your job is to escape either to your feet or to a guard. When those conditions are met, you stop and you start again. And that doesn't happen nearly enough, those positional trainings. and doing it over and over and over and over. Or, okay, guys, today we're going to start, someone's on your back, they've got the rear naked choke in. Your job is to not get tapped. You want to work your way out of it. And look, I understand that training, it might be like your first few, it's like boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, tap. Eventually, it's like, you learn to get that arm off of you, and then, oh, they got it back, tap, but those are the things that are going to help you. And something like that is a good self-defense drill, because, it's the closest you're going to get to an ambush, right? We have to assume that in an ambush, someone gets you into the bad position. If they never got you into the bad position, awesome, you ran away and you survived. That's phenomenal. So I hope this makes sense. So think about this. If you're brand new, train with people who are not brand new. Train with people who are intermediate, even if they're higher level white belts. You just don't want to train with other people who don't know what they're doing. Okay, but I always trained with like blue belts and purple belts when I first started. And then when you once you get to an intermediate level, high white belts, blue belt, you should definitely be training with the white belts now, especially the people who don't know what they're doing, because they are going to give you the reactions that you're going to see in a real fight. And then, of course, if you want to do sport, then yeah, you've got to train with other people who know the sport, of course. And then, how do you do this all safely, especially if you have some sort of, you're older, you're in your 50s, in your 60s, how do you train? Or you have some injuries, it's all positional training. You should do a lot of positional training. And I'm going to be honest, you should do that if you're doing it for sport too. You should be doing a lot of passing of the guard. Pass the guard, maybe make sure you can hold it for 3 seconds so you get your points, but then stop, reset, pass the guard, hold it, boom, pass the guard, hold it. And of course they're giving you resistance, trying not to let you pass. But from like a self-defense perspective, passing the guard it's not really a thing. If someone pulls guard in some sort of self-defense situation, I don't know what's going on. That's not like a real thing in my mind. That's some sort of fantasy land where everybody knows jiu-jitsu. All right, guys, let me know what you think. Who do you think you should roll with, and who are your favorite people to roll with when you first started? I'll talk to you later. Have a great one. See ya.